Hey everyone, this is 8-Bit Flashback, and this is part 2 of the Megabit NESPI case that has a Raspberry Pi 3 inside of it with the functional NFC cartridges. And in this video we're going to be covering how to put together the case and all the electronics. So this case is very similar to the DAF mic case that was created back in 2016, but it's not the same. There's been some modifications to the case and the electronics inside of it, so the assembly is a little bit different. So here's a look at what you'll get if you purchase the Megabit NFC electronic kit plus Mini NES case. So here's a look at the Nintendo case. This is a 3D printed case, and it's got a nice sturdy construction, and the quality of the print looks great. And if you'd like to purchase one of these kits or see other items for sale, I'll make sure to post a link down below in the description to the Megabit store. So here's a look at the bottom half of the Nintendo case, and these two halves just snap together, so it's very easy to assemble the case itself. You also get a mini Nintendo cartridge with a label of your choice and an NFC tag inside of it. You can get just a regular gray color cartridge also. Here's a look at the power buttons you'll get. This is the power and the reset buttons. And here's a look at the lid trim piece. This goes inside the lid here and makes it look a little more official. Here's a look at the cartridge holder. Here's a USB extender. Here's the NFC reader. Here's the latch for the cartridge holder, so when you push the game down it latches in place. Here's a look at the fan. This helps keep your Raspberry Pi 3 cool. Here's a look at your power supply. This supplies power to your NFC reader, your power buttons, and the fan. Also in the kit is an extra NFC tag, some screws and washers, and some glue dots. So with this particular package you have to include your own Raspberry Pi 3, but there is a package called the Megabit Ultimate Package that includes the Raspberry Pi 3, an AC adapter, a memory card, an HDMI cord, and more. Okay, it's time to start putting everything together, and some of this stuff may be pre-assembled, but I'm just going to show you from step 1, just so there's no confusion. So I'm going to start off by putting the cartridge holder in place, and that just snaps in place. There's 2 pins on each side of the cartridge holder. You just set that at an angle, and it'll snap right into the holes. Now I'm going to install the cartridge latch. That installs into the rectangular hole on the bottom half of the case. Now it's time to install the power and reset buttons, and those also install on the bottom half of the case. And notice there's a little notch right here on the side. You want to install these buttons at an angle, and that notch will line right up with one of the Raspberry Pi 3 supports. So here's a closer look at it. See that notch lined right up with the support located right here. So if you have these buttons installed correctly, you should be able to push the power and reset buttons, and they should move freely. Now it's time to plug in the USB extender cable, and that's going to plug into the bottom 2 USB ports. Then you're going to route your wires along the bottom of the Raspberry Pi 3 board like this. Now it's time to set the Raspberry Pi 3 inside the case. And you want to make sure to line up all your port holes correctly and make sure you have your SD card removed. So when it's in the correct position, your video ports, your power ports, and your support holes on the bottom of the case should all line up. And for the USB extender cable, you want to just keep it like this for now. Now it's time to secure the Raspberry Pi 3 to the case, and you may or may not have to use the washers. If the screws start to pop through at all, just go ahead and use the plastic washers. If the screws don't pop through the bottom of the case, then there's no need to use the plastic washers. And you'll want to take your time here, make sure you don't over tighten the screws and damage your Pi 3 board. There's going to be 4 different screw holes total to secure the Raspberry Pi 3. Now it's time to put the USB extender ports in place, and that's just going to slide into a groove right here on the bottom of the case. So here's how it should look when it's in place. Now I'm going to grab my mainboard NFC power supply and start connecting my devices. And every connection can only plug in one way, so there's no way to mix it up. And here's a closer look at the connection. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug in my fan, and that's going to plug in the top here. And again, that can only go in one direction. Now I'm going to plug in my NFC reader, and that'll plug right in the middle here. So there's 3 different components that plug into that mainboard power supply. Your fan, the power buttons, and the NFC reader. So here's a look at the bottom of the mainboard, and there's a connector right here, and that connector is going to plug into the pins on the Raspberry Pi 3 board. And that mainboard needs to plug in all the way towards the top with the first 8 pins located right here. But before I plug in my mainboard, I need to push my USB cables down, that way my mainboard can sit flush. And you want to be careful, make sure you have this plugged into the correct pins or it will not work properly. So here's how it should look when it's in place. It should be pretty close to flush with the top of your USB ports. Now it's time to route the wires for your power buttons, and here's an up-close look at how the wires should look. They should just tuck right between the pins like this. Now it's time to secure the lid trim, and that goes right inside the opening here. So to secure it, you can use a couple dots of super glue, or you can just use some hot glue like I'm using. So the lid trim just slides right into place. There's not a whole lot to it. Now it's time to install the fan, and this just snaps into place on the top half of the case. Now it's time to attach the NFC reader, and that also goes on the top half of the case, right here. So to secure it, I'm going to use 2 glue dots and put a glue dot in opposite corners. After applying the glue dots, I'm going to secure it firmly in place on the bottom right corner of the cartridge holder. And here's how it should look after it's secured, but there's been some minor updates to the case. If you have a case that looks exactly like mine, or you purchased it before November 2017, then this is how your NFC reader should attach, just like I'm showing you here. But if you purchase a case in November 2017 or after, there's been some minor updates to the case, and your NFC reader is going to attach in this location right here. This change gives your NFC reader more clearance from the USB ports and allows your NFC reader to function better. Okay, we're done with the inside of the case. Now we just need to snap together the case. So just start on one side and snap it together, and then work your way around the case. And make sure all your wires are tucked inside the case before you snap it together so you don't damage any of your wires. Also, this case comes with a second USB port opening that was for an older mainboard design, so chances are you're probably not going to use this opening, so you can just use this plug by gluing it in place to seal it off. Okay, we're all done building the case. That was part 2. In part 3, we're going to be covering the software, how to install RetroPie, and how to install the NFC software so your cartridges function. Alright, thanks for watching. If you liked that video, please click that like button, and if you want to hear more from me, please subscribe. And if you want to see more of my videos, just click any of these links.